Hello, my friends. So I just wanted to make a quick video response, or really a video that's been inspired by a video on the channel called FedEx Me Your Drugs, which is an interesting channel name, but produces a lot of good content, and I would definitely recommend checking out some of his videos. The one I'm referring to here is called After They've Seen Paris. And the title of that video is a reference to the song How You Gonna Keep 'Em Down on the Farm. I think that's the title, by a woman named Nora Bayes. This song was written in 1919, right after World War I. And as FedEx Me, I don't know how else to refer to him, says in his video, this song communicates sort of an existential crisis that was going on after World War I. The message of the song is essentially, how are you going to get the young men who just went off and fought the World War in Europe and was exposed to the great cosmopolitan cities and the lifestyles and the material, the glories of the material superiority of these great cities like Paris, and the sort of libertine, amoral lifestyle that they were living, and the all of that comes with the big cities like Paris at that time. How are you going to get them to go back to living their old traditional farming, rural, simple lifestyle? How are you going to get that genie back in the bottle? How are you going to close that Pandora's box, so to speak? And it's sort of jibing the parents of these children who would expect their boys to return home and start, pick up where they left off. But the writer of the song, the singer of the song, is sort of mocking that idea and saying, like, they're not going to go back home and go back to this traditional lifestyle. They've been exposed to the cosmopolitan wonders, the modern wonders, the material and libertine, amoral lifestyle of the cities, and that is so clearly superior that they're never going to go back to this country bumpkin, backwards, simple lifestyle. They'll never go back to that. And just as a side note about the singer, the writer of this song, Nora Bayes, when I first heard this song, it struck me as propaganda. It struck me as, New World Order style, even though this was 100 years ago. It struck me as New World Order style, anti-traditional, modernist, oligarch-produced propaganda. And so one of the first thoughts that came to my mind was, I bet Nora Bayes is Jewish. And even though her name, Nora Bayes, is not particularly Hebrew sounding, I looked her up anyway, and it turns out Nora Bayes was born with the name Rachel Goldberg. She was definitely from a Jewish family. And just as a further tangent about her, she also sang a very famous song that I somehow picked up as a child. I don't even remember when or where I first heard this song, but I just kind of knew of it, called Over There. And it's a big-time World War I propaganda song, a very pro-war rallying cry for young men to enlist in the army and go fight over there in Europe. And she sang that song, which was written by a man named George Cohen. So with the two songs over there, and how you gonna keep them back on the farm, we see 100 years ago a line of Jewish media propaganda that was pro-war, and then after the war selling the what I would suspect to be intentional psychological effect of the war, which was to instill in the public this idea that the people who went to war were now exposed to the larger world. They've left this insulated bubble of the rural traditional lifestyle that's actually it's going away, it's going extinct, and the future, the way that the big cities are going, the way that the people will naturally gravitate toward is this big city, cosmopolitan, libertine lifestyle. So it's just interesting to see 100 years ago the you-know-who's behind this kind of messaging. But anyway, that leads me to the main issue of this video that I wanted to talk about, which is it true that once somebody is exposed to the big city, cosmopolitan, libertine, materialistic sort of lifestyle of the cities and of that's being promoted by the you-know-who's, is there no going back? Is this really a Pandora's box that cannot be closed? I would say no. Fast forwarding a day to finish this video. Why do I say no? Well, this whole narrative that the cosmopolitan, libertine, anti-traditional lifestyle is just so obviously superior that everybody chose it is, in my opinion, really insidious inevitability propaganda meant to provide this sort of this air of willingly choosing something that was horrifically forced upon society, and especially European society. And there's a video that I did about this a while back called, I think, World War II and Industrialization, something along those lines. I'll put a link in the description, where I talk about how World War II in particular decimated the infrastructure of Europe, which prior to that was still predominantly a rural type of society, especially in countries like Italy, in many areas of Germany, many areas of France. There was still a very predominant mode of life that was rural. And World War II did a lot to destroy the infrastructure that supported that mode of life. And afterwards, with the Marshall Plan, a lot of money was injected into these societies, and a militarized rebuilding of that infrastructure in order to make those countries more urbanized and to destroy that older, traditional, rural infrastructure was instituted. And this type of an event is one of the ways in which the modern world was brought to be. And it was so obvious when you look back on it, so obviously not willingly chosen by the people. This is not something that people would have voted for. It was something that was put into effect under martial law, essentially, under military control. from foreign states, namely the United States. And that's not even to include the instrumental political and economic entities that brought about this process, such as the League of Nations, the UN, the World Economic Forum, the Federal Reserve Bank, the World Bank, these other institutions that helped from the top down bring about this new world order, and were absolutely essential in making that happen. So I just wanted to add that. So in many ways, and there are certain other processes that happened within the United States that sort of correspond to that process, where big corporations, big agriculture ended up destroying the possibility for small family farmers to provide the majority of food in America, which is how things were even just 100 years ago. So these processes, the destruction of rural traditional life, and the corralling of people into the big cities was not something that was chosen willingly. And this song, How You Gonna Keep Them Down on the Farm, presents the process as if it were just some willing choice, and that the decision was so obvious, the superiority of the cosmopolitan sort of life was so obvious, and that type of inevitability propaganda, I think, is quite insidious. So that's the first point. The second point, I would say, is the modern sort of mindset, the globalist mindset that many people are currently brainwashed by, indoctrinated in. It takes a lot of effort to implement that kind of programming, that kind of indoctrination, and maintenance. A lot of energy and effort goes into implementing and maintaining that level of indoctrination. It requires, I think, a lot of emotional programming, a lot of emotional sort of trauma at a very young age, is presented to children about how evil racism is, how evil nationalism is, how everyone is equal, and we have the Holocaust indoctrination, and just all of this extremely traumatic emotional sort of abuse is placed on children to get them to have this visceral gut reaction to anything that can be construed as racist or nationalist. Really, what I meant to say is how evil traditional Western white European values in general are. Everything from family values to traditional marriage to traditional gender roles, to everything that used to be traditionally valued is looked upon as barbaric, backwards, oppressive, and bad. And that requires a lot of brainwashing. And that takes a lot of effort to put into children. And there may have been a time, like back in 1919, when something like going into the city and enjoying some kind of degenerate, libertine, cosmopolitan lifestyle didn't seem so bad. It didn't seem so destructive. But today, I think the fact is that the more information you're exposed to, the more you learn about history, the more you learn about how society works, the more you learn about biology, the more convinced you are that this modern, cosmopolitan, globalist, libertine style of society is degenerate and destructive, and ultimately is going to be the ruin of us all. And to say that it would, the farm, rural, traditional lifestyle requires you to insulate somebody and deny them access to information is, in fact, a 100% inversion of the truth. Today, the globalist mindset is what requires insulation and protection, I guess, from information. It requires you to hide things from people, to conceal things, to keep them in a bubble and tell them what information they can and cannot consume, and to keep them sort of wrapped up in this traumatic mind control type of a state where they're unable to process information that contradicts this worldview that they've been given. So really the opposite is true. Today, it takes a lot of effort and energy to keep people locked up in this globalist cosmopolitan mindset. And I think the more information you're exposed to, the more you learn about ecology, about biology, history, just philosophy, things in general, the more you learn, the more you start to realize that this older, traditional, rural way of life is really the superior way, and the sustainable way, and the more harmonious way to live. The best thing you could do is take your kids out of the government indoctrination schools and expose them to as much of this information as you possibly can. You're not insulating your children by taking them out of the government indoctrination programs. You are really giving them, you're protecting them from this level of emotional, traumatic abuse, and providing them with a world of information that will, I think, inevitably lead them to our mindset. And so those are the two reasons I think that this narrative given by the song is false, and why in the long run our way of thinking is going to win out, and that this globalist project that the elites are bringing us down, that the oligarchy is taking us along with, is ultimately doomed to fail. So anyway, once again, I'll say go check out FedEx Me Your Drugs channel. It's a great channel. I've really been enjoying his videos, and thanks for watching.